Donald Trump came to the White House with three goals for his presidency: to give billionaires the biggest tax cut in history at the expense of the rest of America, to redecorate the Oval Office in clearly the ugliest way possible, and enrich himself more than any person could have ever imagined in the most corrupt ways possible. Now, Trump, of course, has accomplished those first two, unfortunately, but the third one he's still working on, stealing as much money as he can all the time. And unfortunately for Trump, it comes with a little bit of humiliation, which is what just happened as a new scandal of his is being blown up by Melania Trump, of all people. We're going to get into it, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into how not just Melania humiliated Trump, but how Trump really also humiliated Melania, I want to start with a little bit of context on what's happening with this Trump crime family, and it comes from Senator Chris Murphy right here.
So this is the most corrupt White House in the history of the universe. Sometimes you see the corruption in reverse. Sometimes you see it in real time. Sometimes you see the corruption before it happens. And let me explain to you a corruption story that is in process. So you know the Department of Defense is going to be making tons of drones and buying a lot of drones in the coming decade. We've seen how lethal and effective they are in warfare in Ukraine. And so it won't shock you to find out that the Trump family has decided to get into the business of building drones. Specifically, Donald Trump Jr. just went on the advisory board of a very small drone company called Unusual Machines based out of Florida. And as soon as he went on the board, guess what happened? The stock price of this company doubled, like overnight. Because, you know, in this environment, in this White House, everybody knows when the fix is about to be in. And so as the Department of Defense starts to ramp up the amount of money that it's going to be spending on drones, don't be shocked or surprised when a very small drone manufacturer out of Florida called Unusual Machines starts to win bids. This is what's going on in this administration. They're just scooping up federal resources and federal contracts and delivering them to their friends, to their political allies, and often just to their family members. Sometimes you don't learn about it until after it's happened, but sometimes you see it coming. And I'm just telling you, we all see this one coming. Unusual Machines, a small company out of Florida, I think is pretty soon going to be in the big business of federal drone contracts.
All Donald Trump and his family members care about is enriching themselves. That has been the goal since he came down that golden escalator. It was a sham, it was a stunt, it was for publicity, as everything Donald Trump ever thinks about is. It is all just putting on an act. But this act for Donald Trump has really paid off at our expense. And now that he doesn't have Elon Musk to give government contracts to, they're all going to Eric, Don Jr., and Ivanka for bad weapons manufacturing, for drones, or for shitty Chinese clothing, or whatever Ivanka and Jared are doing right now. I don't know, but that is what they're focused on. And it's paid off, as Jessica Tarlov broke down right here.
Hold on, let me get him on the phone.
Josh?
Tell him I loved his op-ed. And Greg mentioned a staggering level of corruption. And I just got a note that the staggering level of corruption from last night's meme coin dinner.
That's what you're focusing on, the meme coin.
No, 40% of Donald Trump's wealth has been accumulated since he became president because of two crypto coins. The New York Times did interviews with foreign buyers of this cryptocurrency who came over here to have dinner with him. A guy from South Korea.
This is not even part of the segment.
So what?
You're talking about a meme coin.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about who's corrupt and who is profiting off the American office.
Did he try to cover that up? I don't think so.
Yeah, Caroline Levitt said
you're defending an administration that covered up a dying leader, and you're sitting here going, but meme coin, meme coin.
I'm saying billions.
All right, let's give Paul a chance to clean it up real quick. Paul, final thoughts.
It is clean on my side of the street.
All right, I'll get a step.
The fact that the mainstream media refuses to give any attention to this crypto corruption unless Donald Trump is deliberately shouting from the rooftop that he's taking money from foreign actors in the most corrupt and criminal ways possible is just a complete failure on their part. But we are going to highlight it and highlight just how humiliating it is, how criminal it is, and how bad it's been for Melania's image. Trump and Melania's crypto grift suffer catastrophic plunge. The man who promised to be the first crypto president has seen the value of his own crypto coin collapse faster than his approval ratings. Days before his inauguration, Donald Trump announced that he was launching a meme coin, a type of cryptocurrency that relies on online hype and digital branding. The token, traded as Trump and inspired by the president's "fight, fight, fight" chant after his assassination attempt, has fallen in value from almost $75 per token in January to barely $8 today. These tokens surged in value immediately after its launch, dropped to $40 a token on the day before Trump became president, and has continued to decline precipitously since then. First Lady Melania Trump followed her husband into the famously volatile cryptocurrency industry, and her token has fared even worse. Her Melania coin has lost more than 98% of its value since its mid-January peak, and it is now trading at about 20 cents per token. Notably, the meteoric fall of the Trump's crypto assets doesn't mean that he and his family haven't made any money off the gambit. A Reuters investigation from February found that in the initial frenzy to buy Trump tokens after the coin's launch, the creators of the coin made nearly $100 million in trading fees. Senate Democrats have asked the Office of Government Ethics to investigate the president's investments in digital assets, which they allege could and obviously do violate the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. The Trump Organization, of course, did not respond to a request for comment. So although it is making them quite literally hundreds of millions of dollars, it's still pretty humiliating. And especially because there is no way on earth that Melania has any access to Melania coin or knows what's going on with it. I'm sure that is not in the relationship contract agreement. But what is clear is that they have stolen this money. They have stolen it. Something that is key in the crypto space is not only do you have to be early, like in a stock, I think it's pretty simple. You gotta buy that low. You gotta sell that pretty high. I'm no economic expert over here, but I think that's the strategy. But the problem with crypto is that it's not real. So when the money goes away, it's not actually there. All you're doing is just stealing from other people. Nothing is generated, created, destroyed. It is just a practice of stealing. It is an artificially inflated cryptocurrency that just took money from Donald Trump's most loyal supporters, using Melania's name to do so, just effectively humiliating her and putting a lot of blame of people who lost millions of dollars on the First Lady, which is pretty funny. I don't know how much she cares, but again, it just goes to show what type of operation is being run within the White House, where Donald Trump is also selling merch. He's selling merch in the White House. But this is what we've come to expect from Trump. This is what we know is happening all the time. It is corruption, it is chaos, and it's cover-ups. And of course, it doesn't just stop with the crypto. We have to continue to talk about an issue that needs more attention now, more than ever, because we are returning to talking about it in Congress. It's Donald Trump's Epstein scandal, and Ari Melber broke it down right here.
President Trump's problems in the Jeffrey Epstein case continue. This week, a judge rebuked what looked like a ploy by the Trump administration to take some of the documents to court when they could release most of them, denying that request, calling it a distraction. Key officials are also going under oath this week, including the Trump attorney general who was in charge when Epstein died, and there were so many questions about the missing videos and secrecy. That's Attorney General Barr. Now, we have been following this story, breaking down not only the corruption, but how far back it goes. This is a new timeline that we debuted this week, and I want to show you part of this special report. Local police in Palm Beach, Florida, began a probe into Epstein, investigating reports of abusing victims as young as 14. The local case led to Epstein's indictment for a single count of soliciting prostitution. Epstein reached a deal with the Bush administration's federal prosecutors to take that local Florida conviction for soliciting prostitution with an adult and a minor. Epstein got a lenient, short prison sentence and an unusual agreement that the Bush DOJ would not prosecute Epstein further, or 4 of his co-conspirators, or any others. Another 9 years went by, and then the Miami Herald reported an Epstein expose on the allegations of his conduct and that Bush-era prosecutor who cut the sweetheart deal. That investigative report gained traction, partly because of a tie to Trump, who promoted the very prosecutor, Alex Acosta, to his cabinet, leading to a fairly swift federal indictment of Epstein on far more serious sex trafficking charges. Epstein was found dead in his cell. The situation was suspicious. Officials there broke several protocols. Epstein was a high-profile detainee. He'd been placed on suicide watch, which was then quickly lifted. Guards failed to do required inspections the very night of his death. And a lot of questions were hanging over all of this. Trump Attorney General Barr even admitting the prison made mistakes then, but claiming that he personally reviewed prison video which showed no one entering the cell. And with Epstein dead, prosecutors turned to a co-conspirator who might have benefited from that original Florida case being shut down, what I told you about. They went ahead and indicted Ghislaine Maxwell for helping Epstein's sex trafficking. It was a problem for Trump, given that he promoted the original prosecutor, that he oversaw the DOJ, which failed to answer questions or have transparency about whatever happened in that prison cell. Bondi went from saying there was a client list to there wasn't. She was lying then or lying now. The DOJ memo then said there was no other Epstein info that was going to be released, which ignited that firestorm of criticism we all lived through. The Trump administration's contradicting claims drew more heat on its secrecy. The DOJ then sent this former Trump criminal defense attorney to interview Maxwell in prison and then transferred her to a better prison, an apparent reward for the one person doing any time for Epstein's indicted federal crimes. This is a damning account of President Trump's approach to this case in government. Now, this is a serious governing problem for President Trump and the DOJ and obviously the impacted victims. Even if we learn nothing else about this, it's an open scandal for this administration. And then there are the glaring and inconvenient facts that go back even further before Trump was in government. Legally, these social links alone are not evidence of a crime. They are evidence of a conflict of interest, the kind of link that requires a judge or prosecutor to recuse from a case. But Trump has been doing the opposite, commenting and intervening, his DOJ's actions on Epstein repeatedly putting secrecy over facts. And a lot of a cover-up over the victims who, as you see in that fuller timeline, were cut out of the initial deal struck by the prosecutor, later promoted and then ousted by the Trump administration. And so many of these victims say they feel cut out again as Maxwell gets special treatment.
We cannot let them get away from this. We will not forget. I promise you we will be talking about Donald Trump's Jeffrey Epstein scandal every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.